Welcome, welcome, welcome to Church in Ocean Park. Good to see everybody. Let's say I'm Dr. Kim, and with me is
Mama iJoy.
Mama iJoy. And we're so excited this morning that we have Ralph Craig will be our speaker this morning. So excited. And I hear it's raining where some of you are, and we're here in Philadelphia, and it's raining where we are. So, the blessed rain is coming down. And Hurley Jim will be lighting Advent candles because we're in the third week of Advent. And let's see, we're also celebrating Bodhi Day. And I don't even know if I said that correctly, but so we're thinking about that today. And yes, we are glad to be here. And we're going to start off because third week of Advent, for those who celebrate it, you light a pink candle and the word is joy. So we will definitely get to that for sure. So when I was thinking about joy, a song that I used to sing in Sunday school and vacation Bible school came up. The song goes like this, and y'all can help us out. I've got that joy, 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 joy down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart. I've got that joy, 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 joy down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart to stay. Now, Mom is being all, like sophisticated and everything, because we used to go, where? We would tear up when it was time to do that song. All right. So help us out. Take a stretch if you want, everybody. Oh, my goodness gracious. Yes, indeed. I've got that joy, 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 joy down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart. I've got that joy, 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 joy down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart to stay. I've got that love, 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 love down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart. I've got that love, 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 love down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart to stay. Now this one, it's always hard to say this if we get my mouth together. It goes like this. I've got that peace that passeth understanding down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart.
Oh, where?
Down in my heart. I've got that peace that passeth understanding down in my heart.
Where?
Down in my heart to stay. I've got that joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Down in my heart. Down in my heart, I've got that joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart to stay. And yeah, when you see me do crazy things, remember, I come by it honestly.
I'm a crazy mama. A crazy Dr. Mama.
Dr. Mama. So welcome to the Church in Ocean Park. Yes.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Now let's hear from Laureen von Klan. Laureen, unmute.
Unmute. All right. Welcome to the Church in Ocean Park. The Church in Ocean Park is a caring interfaith congregation. We celebrate diversity, treating ourselves and others with respect. Our gatherings support, educate, and challenge us in our relationships to self, others, and the world. Creative expression, singing, and working for social justice are all parts of our spiritual life together. You may be wondering if you are welcome here. You are welcome at the Church in Ocean Park if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, if you're Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Wiccan, atheist, or some combination or something else altogether. We extend a special invitation to those who are single, married, divorced, gay, transgender, intersex, and those who are rich or living paycheck to paycheck. You are welcome if you are just browsing, just woke up, or just got out of jail. We don't care if you're more religious than the Pope or in need of a little spiritual refresher. We invite soccer moms, tree huggers, latte sippers, vegetarians, and junk food eaters. We invite those who are in recovery or still addicted. We invite you if you're having problems or you're down in the dumps, or if you don't like organized religion, or if you are in need of prayer. We offer a special invitation to those who work too hard, don't work, have lost their jobs, or dream of a new career. We welcome you, whether you are darn ready for the next march or in need of putting your feet up and Zoom singing with friends. We invite those who are inked, pierced, or both. We invite tourists, seekers, doubters, bleeding hearts, and you, that unique you. We welcome you to the church in Ocean Park.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Now, you may be wondering where Reverend Janet Gallery McGiffin is. Well, she is with her family in Mexico. She and her mom went to Mexico because Reverend Janet is officiating for a memorial service for her uncle. So we send her lots of love this week. And she knew that things were going to keep on keeping on here at Church in Ocean Park. And that's just what we are doing. Now, we always remember each week that the Church in Ocean Park sits on land that is part of the lands that really are. And actually, my mom and I were here in Philadelphia, and we are sitting on land that's part of the Lenape, the Susquehannock, the Shawnee, and the Iroquois, the original people of these lands, and their lands were stolen and colonized. We also remember people like our ancestors who were brought to this nation in chains before it was even a nation, and were made to work to help build up the lands of those who were of the settler colonialism. We remember all of that, and we pledge ourselves, as always, to keep working for freedom, working for peace and for justice, for the original peoples of this land who are still among us, and for all peoples who are in need of freedom. So let's just take a moment and breathe together. And a moment of silence as we remember and think about the original peoples of these lands. Thank you. And Louise.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kim. Let's move more deeply into the present by chanting a chant from Thich Nhat Hanh. I have arrived. I am home in the here and in the now. And we'll sing that 3 times. I have arrived. I am home in the here and in the now. I have arrived. I am home in the here and in the now. I have arrived. I am home in the here and in the now. And now we're going to welcome our Advent candle lighter, our dear friend Hurley Jim Bowling.
Thank you. And it's good to be with you as usual this Sunday morning. Yeah, spoiler alert, for those of you just joining, the candle I'm lighting is the candle of joy. Apparently it's the Mother of Mary, Mary, Mother of Jesus, joy for that, which actually fits into a little story that Janet encouraged me to tell. I participated with the first family, big Mexican family that adopted me in the beginning of a ritual, the 9 days leading up to the feast day of the Virgin de Guadalupe. So it's 9 days celebrating the Virgin de Guadalupe. And we had prayers, we had singing, we had song sheets. And one of the songs, main one we sang over and over again, was about Eres Mexicana, which was to the Virgin Mary. You are Mexican. And that was a source of joy obviously for the whole crowd there. All of this was in Spanish, but my Spanish is so-so. And then what we did, we had candles, we had flowers, and we took the candles from the host that night and took them in cars because it was a couple miles away. And then once we got to the apartment building where the host of the second night was, we processed in with the candles, with the flowers and singing, and created an altar in the second night. And it was just a beautiful, joyous celebration. We haven't worked that out here yet. These are not the candles that have been used for the other two. But we might think about that anyway. So what we're going to do, Molly, who is just a little off camera here, I guess. Yeah, there she is.
Hi, Molly. Now, Hurley, Jim, can we see your face a little bit more? Because we can't see your face.
Well,
If
yeah,
you
the
can
problem
now.
is with the way we've worked out so you can see the candles, you can't see me.
Okay.
So we're going to, it's going to have to be this way. Okay, so you'll see me again once we get the candles lit, I guess, or maybe I'll slide that. No, I can't get low enough. Anyway, yeah, if I sat on the floor, maybe you could see me, but anyway. Okay, so yeah, Molly's going to light them. And I was looking this up on the internet. It says light a purple candle first, so we're doing that. Blue candle. As a reminder, I guess the first candle is hope. Well, actually, there's differences of opinion on this, as I found out. But I think hope and love. And now we've just lit the candle of joy. And I will just read one little thing about that. We need joy to carry on. We need joy to heal, to be whole. We need joy to strengthen us for the journey ahead of building relationships and communities of loving kindness and safety for all. As we light this, the third candle of Advent, the candle of joy, let us welcome joy into our lives now and going forward.
Thank you, Hurley, Jim, and thank you, Molly. Yes, to the hand, Molly's hand. Thank you so much.
Hi, Molly.
Well, today, I know some people said, oh my goodness, Tina Turner Day. Well, today we are celebrating also Bodhi Day, which is a remembrance and celebration in Buddhist communities of the enlightenment of the Buddha under, I guess, under the Bodhi tree. But we've got someone, and Ralph Craig will be speaking about that. But part of today is also about the spirituality of the incredible Tina Turner. Yes. And so just to give you a little snippet about her spirituality, and as Ralph was also telling us, we're keeping her and her family particularly in our thoughts today because one of her biological sons, actually, I guess she had two biological sons, and the second one, the first one died a few years ago, and the second one died just a few days ago. So we're keeping her in our thoughts as we think about her on this celebration of Bodhi Day. But just to give you a little bit about her spirituality.
Helps you find out who you really are. Yeah, I want to try to simplify so I don't overtalk, because I could start over there and end there. First, I have to say that I don't think a lot of people realize how important food for the mind is. They don't understand how important meditation or prayer is. You see, I never stopped. I went from my Baptist prayers to Buddhism. Just to say, maybe it was different words putting in at a time when I needed different words. The Lord's Prayer to Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and then the book of saying words. What does it do? You can have a house beautiful, houses beautiful, cars, but there's still those moments when you don't feel good. Sometimes you're upset, you're just cranky, you're just unhappy, and you have no reason to be necessarily, or you are easily upset. Well, that's what the practice does for me. It helps me not to be upset easily. It helps me to deal with situations on a different level because I think differently about it. I don't get upset as easily. Yes, I still get upset because I'm only human. But the whole attitude towards someone getting upset because someone is blowing the horn, or look at that crazy person how he's driving, I don't get upset about it. Things go wrong in the business. Before I become angry, I will have to really dig into it to try to find what is going on before I get upset. Not upset first and then find out what's going on. What the practice does, it helps you to feel better, helps you to think different. If you think different, you think correctly. I would say it helps you to think correctly. So that means you can help yourself get the things you want. Some people say, I was told that I could get things, whether it's a car or a house, which some people need help in that way. Well, of course, because you change an old style of thinking, which is not very smart, that blocks you from getting where you want to get. But once you start putting words in, the same words, it's like typing in good thoughts. You type it in and you get a whole rollout of good thoughts. Your brain is thinking good thoughts. Your mind is constantly rolling and saying good things. So you think differently, which helps you to get to where you want to get your car, your house, and to feel good. It's really very important what you say, what you think, how often you say it.
Well, to use the metaphor of a computer, garbage in, garbage out.
That's
right. Yeah.
Yes.
That's my little request. Could you just Nam Renge Kyo? I want us just to hear you chant.
What do you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Nam Myo Renge Kyo. Nam Myo Renge Kyo. Nam Myo Renge Kyo. Myo Renge Yo, Nam Myo Renge Yo, Nam Myo Renge Yo, Nam Myo Renge Yo, Nam Myo Renge Yo. Myo Renge Kyo, Hoben Pondai Ni say don't do the Maya, don't need to go there to Bodhi, a dead angry about him, and you is like your man, Nagati, Puyo, Punoti, and so on.
Oh, thank you, Nina. All the cameramen are asleep now.
This weird toolbox replacing gadget is quickly becoming the most popular.
So hearing that chant and thinking of the enlightenment that continues to come into her life, and I'm sure even at this most difficult time for her family. Today we think about and celebrate the life of Tina Turner in thinking of her spiritual practice. And we are so thrilled to have as our speaker, Ralph Craig III. Now, he's been with us before. Some of you might remember him. I know him from his time at Loyola Marymount University. He's currently a PhD candidate who I hear will be graduating with his PhD this coming June, I guess, in religious studies at Stanford University. And Ralph received his BA in theological studies at LMU, and his studies included comparative theology and yoga studies, and his dissertation is a study of medieval representations of Buddhist preachers across South Asia, across South Asian Buddhist literature. And his other interests include philosophy, metaphysical religion, religious experience, African-American religious history, and religion and popular culture. And he does have a forthcoming book, which is called Dancing in My Dreams. And it is a spiritual biography of Tina Turner. So that's amazing. Ralph, where are you? Unmute yourself, make yourself known. We can't wait to hear you.
I'm here. Good
Hello.
morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me. And I want to say that I'm very happy to finally see Mama iJoy on the screen, about whom I've heard so much. And as I said last time I was here, Maureen and Chris Chappell, who is not here yet, they were a big help to me when I moved to Los Angeles, which was the best of times and the worst of times. But Maureen and Chris really helped me open up my life. So I'm very grateful to them, and I'm happy to see Maureen there and Chris whenever he arrives. And I guess the last thing I will say is that, like Dr. Harris said, I am thinking of Tina and her family. I have talked to Tina's niece the other day, on the day that her cousin, Tina's son, passed away very suddenly. And I have talked to other people in their family. And so I'm thinking of them now. Yeah.
Yes. So thinking about, as you, and I really appreciate you sending that link. And I know your voice is taking a little bit of a hit this morning. So thanks so much for being with us. Yes, hydrate. So, you know, what do you think of when you watch that video of her describing her spiritual practice?
Well, the first thing I think about is that I find it a very funny video because they use the clip of her singing "I Don't Want to Fight No More," which was on the What's Love Got to Do with It movie soundtrack. Tina didn't like the song. She didn't watch the movie. And she was so stressed and anxious about the movie that she got shingles. She got very sick during that time, because the past, which was a kind of very traumatic for her, right, was brought up again just when she felt it had started to die down, and the questions about her past with Ike had just started to die down. And then the movie, came out, and she helped a bit with the film. And, there's of course the scenes of abuse in the movie, and all of these things were very kind of re-traumatizing for her. So I think it's very interesting that they pair these two. But about her spirituality, I think it reveals that for Tina, for many Buddhists, the mind and the subconscious mind are very, very important for her. She sees the subconscious mind in particular as the site for the transformation of one's self and life. So when I watch that video, I think it's just so great that, she's promoting this album. She had an album out at the time. Had just turned 60 years old. She's promoting the album. And in the midst of this kind of, very mundane discussion about the album and her looks and the tour, the interviewer gets this great, deep Tina moment. Yeah. So it also represents the fusion, as is the case for many Soka Gakkai and Nichiren Buddhists, Tina included, that there's this fusion between their daily lives, right, however mundane that may be, and Buddhism or their Buddhist life and thought. Tina doesn't separate her religious life, from her work life, from etc.
What's interesting for me in particular also is how she speaks about thinking about the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, thinking about her Baptist practice, and then moving into her Buddhist practice. So yeah, what can you tell us about some things that you know about that? I mean, sometimes here we talk about double belonging or triple belonging within, as we think about church in Ocean Park. Would you say she had those ideas about double or triple belonging, or was she moving from the from the Baptist practice into the Buddhist practice? What would you say?
I would say that once, in a Vanity Fair article in 1993, Tina referred to herself as Buddhist Baptist. And she said that what she meant by that, right? So that would seem to be an instance of multiple religious belonging, right? But she then said right after that what she meant by that was that she could still relate to her Baptist upbringing and her current Buddhist faith. And that for her, it was all close. And she said it was all close as long as you contact that subconscious mind, which she does through chanting, right? So I would say for Tina that it's not quite multiple religious belonging as much as it is she comes from a Baptist family, kind of immersed in Black Southern religious culture in West Tennessee. She comes out of that. Her original training was that. And she, as she often said, she kept the Lord's Prayer all the way up through 1973, right, when she converted to Buddhism. And initially, when she started practicing Buddhism, she would say, right, because she was on her own, she was kind of receiving bits and pieces of information, but she was still with her ex-husband, Ike Turner, who had forbidden her from going to any Buddhist meetings and having Buddhists coming to the house, right? And actually had, abused her on this point. So Tina didn't quite know how the practice of Buddhism worked. So she would say the Lord's Prayer, and then she would chant for 5 minutes after that. And she was like, this maybe is how it's supposed to go. So say the Lord's Prayer, and then right. So it took about 2 years for her to stop, saying the Lord's and to do the complete Buddhist practice. So I think that is a way of Tina acknowledging that, right, that is her background. And this is also true for most, I wouldn't say most, but for many African-American Buddhists in particular. There's a great book out there called, just came out last year or earlier this year or something, called, I have it somewhere, oh, here it is. Black Buddhists and the Black Radical Tradition. The Practice of Stillness in the Movement of Liberation. That book is by my good friend, Rima Vesely-Flod. So as Rima outlines in that book, for many African-American Buddhists, they still relate to their, upbringings, for many of whom their upbringings, of course, were not Buddhist. So they still relate to whatever their upbringing was. And when I'm home in New Orleans, with my family, though I'm Buddhist, when I'm home in New Orleans with my family, I do still go to, not often, but we'll make Mass with my family if I have the time and I'm not tied up with something else. And then, there's a whole missionary Baptist contingent of my family from Mississippi. And when I see them, if time permits, I will often end up in a Baptist church. And when I was promoting my own book in Tennessee with Tina's niece and all of that, I attended services at the church that Tina attended growing up. So all of this is a way of saying that I think for Tina, her Baptist background is a part of her. It was a part of her self-formation.
Wow. Now, that's made him sort of taking it all in. Would you give us the title of that book again? And then if someone can, let's see, can
It
maybe
was just put in the chat.
just put in, hey, this group is great about that.
Yes.
Okay, so Black Buddhists and the Black radical tradition, the practice of stillness in the movement for liberation. So you have a physical copy. Looks like there's a Kindle edition. So that sounds incredible.
Yes.
And actually, I'll be, my students are about to have something else they're going to have to read as I teach for this coming semester, African American religious traditions. Well, that is just incredible. Now, to think about Bodhi Day, and am I pronouncing it correctly? Or
It's Bodhi Day.
Bodhi Day. Thank you. What can you tell us about that, or ways that it might be celebrated and remembered in maybe African American Buddhist traditions? What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting because Bodhi Day, of course, celebrates Shakyamuni Buddha's awakening, right, under the Bodhi tree. But in Soka Gakkai Nichiren Buddhism, which is what Tina practices, there are heavily emphasize the fact that, right, the person is the Buddha, right? That the person has this Buddha nature, which makes them a Buddha, and so on and so forth. So Tina is the Buddha. So really we're celebrating Tina's day. But, different Buddhist traditions and for African Americans, in different Buddhist traditions, right, they would tend to celebrate it the way, however their tradition celebrates it, right? However their Buddhist tradition celebrates. So that could include bowing, lighting candles and saying prayers in front of an altar that has Shakyamuni Buddha on it, some kind of statue or representation thereof. It could look like, I know of some Buddhists, I'm thinking of Zenju Earthland Manuel, who has a recent book called The Shamanic Bones of Zen. She's an African-American Zen Buddhist practitioner and teacher. In her book, The Shamanic Bones of Zen, she talks about, her incorporation of ancestor worship and other such things into her Buddhist practice. So for her, Bodhi Day might look like performing, considering Shakyamuni as one of her ancestors and worshiping him therein, or, offering worship to him therein. So it looks different for different African-American Buddhists. And I think that this is an important point, that African-American Buddhist, right, and African-American Buddhism is like any African-American religious tradition, like any religious tradition of any kind. It's not monolithic, right? There's no just Catholicism or just Baptist or just Buddhist, there are, in some ways, it's as multiform as people's lives are, even as they sometimes adhere to very formal traditions and forms. So I think that the way African-American Buddhists celebrate Bodhi Day is as multiform as African-American Buddhists themselves. I would also say that for SGI Buddhists like Tina, they actually don't celebrate Bodhi Day or most traditional Buddhist holidays. The Soka Gakkai has its own kind of program of major days, right? So most Soka Gakkai Nichiren Buddhists would celebrate the day that Nichiren, for example, revealed his teachings, which was April 28th, 1253, April 28, 1253. Right? That's the day that Nichiren reveals his teaching to the world. So I think most Soka Gakkai Nichiren Buddhists would celebrate that, for example, not today, which again represents the multiform nature of Buddhist celebrations.
So thank you. Now you've mentioned a few times SGI, Soka Gakkai Nichiren Buddhism. So do you want to tell us just a little bit more about that and how that tradition came to the United States and how African Americans began to grow into that tradition?
Mhm. Soka Gakkai Nichiren Buddhism. When Nichiren is a 13th century, or was a 13th century Japanese Buddhist monk. And like I said, he revealed his teaching in 1253, and then spent much of the rest of his life, propagating his teaching amongst a pretty small band of followers. And he was known for being a bit of a firebrand. Sometimes it's called, I can't think of the word right now, but he wrote letters and he remonstrated with the government, and he was almost beheaded. And it's quite an interesting figure. I'll put it that way. But the Soka Gakkai was founded in 1930 by two educators in Japan, right? Sunesuburo Makuguchi and Jose Toda, who were educational reformers, and first sought to reform the Japanese education system. But then they were converted to Nichiren Buddhism, and Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism in particular, and over time started to fuse Nichiren Buddhism with their educational theories and formed the Soka Gakkai. They both went to prison. They were imprisoned as thought criminals during the kind of militaristic Japan in World War II and all of that. The first president of the organization died in prison at the age of 73. And the second president emerged from prison, was released from prison in July 1945, and rebuilt the Soka Gakkai as solely a religious organization. And it was his disciple, Daisaku Ikeda, who facilitated the kind of movement of the organization around the world. Right? So Soka Gakkai comes to the United States in 1953. Throughout the 50s, but they hold 1953 as a major year for them. And that's the year when a man named George M. Williams came to the United States and slowly started to help the organization in the US get off the ground. It originally came through Japanese war brides, right? The women who were the were the wives of Black and white veterans of the Korean War. Mm. So they were the first practitioners of Soka Gakkai in America. And then into the 60s and 70s, the organization experienced phenomenal growth, particularly in urban centers, right? Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, New York City, Chicago, et cetera. And that's where many African-American members joined the organization throughout the 60s. So ever since the 60s, right, Soka Gakkai has had, basically from about 1963 or so onward, Soka Gakkai has had this enormous presence, African-American presence in the organization. I mean, so much that James Allen Detour's famous study of Soka Gakkai, called Soka Gakkai, Builders of the Third Civilization, it came out in like 1968 or something. Already, he was a sociologist. Already, he was counting 1/6 of the organization's membership as African-American.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, why don't we end this time of the message because I know people are formulating the questions that they want to have. There's a story that you have told me, and I really appreciated about one of the influence that African-American members had on Soka Gakkai Nichiren Buddhism in terms of the kneeling and the postures of prayer. Mm-hmm. You remember that? So we'll do this, and then we'll end the message portion. But there will be people that want to ask them questions and all as we go. So would you just tell that story briefly?
Yes, that many American members felt that kneeling, right, in Seiza, right, like kneeling on the knees without a cushion, in Soka Gakkai, they didn't kneel on cushions, just on their knees on the floor. And many Japanese members felt like this is an important part of the practice, and American members said, but we sit in chairs and, our knees hurt, and you're talking about chanting for hours and being numb from the chest down. is not ideal. So they changed that. And then for African-American members in particular, they were instrumental in having the language of the organization changed from master-disciple relationships to mentor-disciple relationships. Many African-American members, said, for obvious reasons, master doesn't work for us. And we need another word. And many Japanese members say, well, the word is master. And many African-American members, some of whom spoke Japanese, said, no, the word sensei does not have to mean master. It means teach. The Chinese character sure means teacher. There's no reason it has to be master. So that was an important change. But I just want to close my kind of part of the message with Tina's words. And this is from a 2011 interview that was reprinted in 2016 in the book Awakening My Heart. But Tina, the question posed to Tina was, what does it mean for you as a rock singer that your latest album at the time is about prayer? And Tina's answer was, it means that people who work in the arts need prayer as much as anyone else. I don't separate my work as a rock singer from prayer. When I went on stage to make a living, I made people happy with my work. The feedback was always that I inspired people to get out and help themselves to go forward, to practice Buddhism. Everything has been very positive, and that's because of my spiritual practice. I feel alone now. My mother is gone, my sister is gone, but I have 2 sons, I have my relationship with my partner, and I have my practice. I feel that I have help. The practice takes care of me. If you practice, you will see that this is exactly what it does. And of course, that's very poignant because her 2 sons are now also gone and have joined the ancestors. So Tina is today very much reliant on her Buddhist practice, and she feels that that's the message of even her life as a rock singer.
Ashe, Ashe. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's see, Ralph, are you still with us? Yes. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So next, our music director, Louise Dobbs, is going to lead us in a song, and then we'll have community sharing. And there's some people that might have thoughts or some questions for you, or they might just have something that they would like to say. Okay, so please take care of your voice for a couple minutes, just, you know, and Louise, wonderful Louise, are you there?
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Yes, I am. And thank you, Ralph. That was very enlightening. I loved hearing it. And I want to sing a song now, Thank You for My Life. And what I like about this song is that it's not all puppies and roses. I thank you for my life in all its complexity. So thank you for my life. The lyrics are in the chat, so you can join in if you like. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my life. Each precious day is a gift to me, and I can hardly believe the beauty I see. Join me. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my life. Each precious day is a gift to me, and I can hardly believe the beauty I see. Thank you for my suffering and the wholeness that it brings. Thank you for the trees in spring, for their budding and flowering. Thank you for my frustration, my succumbing to temptation, for my growth and the lack there. a gift to me. I can hardly believe the beauty I see. Thank you for my range of feelings, for the unexpected healings, for my process of growth, for love and hate, I need them both. Thank you for the lessons unending, for the power of surrendering, for boredom and waiting to be free. Thank you for creating this for me. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my life. Each precious day is a gift to me, and I can hardly believe the beauty I see. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my life. Each precious day is a gift to me, and I can hardly believe the beauty I see. I can hardly believe the beauty I see.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Louise. Now, I believe you're also going to lead us through with this community sharing.
Yes, that is the
Hey,
case.
so you want to let Ralph know about what we're thinking of here?
Yes, the idea here is people may have a question or they may just have a comment. So you can answer if not, or maybe some comments do not require a response. So I see Maureen's hand up. Maureen, why don't you go? And then Craig.
Thanks so much, Craig. Ralph. I was looking at Craig. Thanks so much for your talk. And I have a question. I probably have asked it to you before, but I'm going to ask it again. When Buddhism came to America in this century or the past century, most of the groups were almost exclusively white. You know, the Theravada, the Zen, the Tibetan, not entirely, but primarily. And it's so striking to me, you know, when you're in, like at your wedding, you know, your friends from the Soka Gakkai community there's so many Black people in this country found resonance in this particular form of Buddhism. And I just wondered if you wanted to speak to that either globally or personally or both. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I think the African-American engagement with Eastern religious traditions begins from what we can tell historically quite early in the 20th century. And this, of course, flowers into blossoms in the 50s and 60s. I mean, while doing research for my own book, I found newspaper articles from the 40s and 50s of which you might call like practitioners of various forms of divination and whatnot in Harlem and Chicago and so on, as including the Buddha as one of the figures they could draw power from. Let's put it that way. So, and then of course for all Americans after the 1965 Hart something act that ended the kind of quota system for Asian immigration and so on, was often called the 1965 Asian Immigration Act. After Hart-Keller Act is what it's called. After that, you know, the kind of the American encounter with Asian peoples, right, picks up enormously. And African Americans were a part of that as well. I think Soka Gakkai in particular had such success because of their locations in urban centers and because of their practice of doing street was what was called street shakabuku. Shakabuku means to literally it means to break and subdue. But what it functionally means is to propagate the religion and share the teachings with others. So they were saying on street corners, in parks and other things, members in, I'll just say this very quickly, members in New York City, older members, tell the story of how, Union Square in New York now is very nice. And, they have the Christmas market and the Soka Gakkai Center in New York City is on 16th Street, 16th and 5th Ave, or 15th and 5th Ave. And so there's a block from Union Square. And when the center was founded there, the culture center was founded there, Union Square was just filled, with drug addicts and homeless, it's the whole thing. And they would often have to, members, particularly men's division members and young men, would have to stand and literally protect the center from break-ins and other such things. So that's just to say that their location in urban environments and their willingness to stand on the street and literally pull people in, that I think contributed substantially. And that's how, it's very poignant. The last thing I'll say about that, it is very poignant that Tina's son just passed away, because it's actually Tina's son who was one of the original people. He was himself Buddhist, who got his mother into the practice. He was in Los Angeles, he was in Inglewood, and Soka Gakkai members on the street handed him a card that said Nam Myoho Renge Kyo on it and said, come to Buddhist meetings and change your life, and gave him juzu beads, prayer beads. And he went home to his mother, Tina, who he knew was deeply unhappy with his father, and said, these people say, if we chant these words, you can become happy. And Tina said, I'm not allowed to go with you, but you are free to go to these meetings. And that's how he started to practice Buddhism. And that's how that's one of the first ways she heard about it. So it's that street propagation experience that is responsible for many people of color, African Americans, Latinx Americans, and so on. That's how many of them were brought into the practice. Thank you, Marie.
Craig, Ali.
Yes, following up on that, because I was briefly involved in that movement as well. And I remember when I looked at, because by the time I had joined it, Tina was already doing this practice, and I could see, what it was doing for her, and what it reminded me of is that it was changing her life, much like Islam had changed El Hajj Malik Shabazz's life. And so, and coming from that place, when we look at, just where the trauma in terms of our community is, because they're both two basically strong, spiritually based faiths. I'm wondering specifically how that speaks, especially when you look at the trauma that's within the community, to address, that healing. Because that's where we're going, is definitely in need of some sort of healing. If you could speak to that, it would be appreciative.
Yes. So speak to Tina's or Soka Gakkai's.
Well, yeah, the spiritual offering, that's because let me put it this way. The community is being hit with all kinds of options, paths to go here. Some of it is spiritual, but much of it isn't.
Yes.
And as a result, the stuff that isn't is traumatizing.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get a sense of how we can more or less address trauma and the healing, from that spiritual base that Buddhism seems to promote.
Yes.
Next.
Thank you for that. I think that we should always understand with Buddhism, and this is not just Soka Gakkai, this is Buddhist traditions writ large. You know, most Buddhist traditions start from the understanding that there is a way of thinking and living in this world that is enmeshed in suffering, right? Now, that's not and these are sometimes called the four truths of noble ones, sometimes called the four noble truths, but that's of course a misnomer. But noble truth, this first one says that life and a certain way of living life is suffering, right? That the causes of suffering or thirst, right, craving after essentially the wrong things, but that there is a way out, and that can be ended. It doesn't have to be that way, and that the way to end that is this kind of path, right? Now, many people harp on 1 and 2, life is suffering, causes suffering, but that's not insight. I mean, that's, anybody knows that, that life can suck, right? The insight is that it doesn't have to be, it's 3 and 4. It doesn't have to be that way, and there's a way out. So most Buddhist traditions start from the understanding that there is a way to transform one's mind, one's heart, one's relationship to the world, right? So that would be the Soka Gakkai is no different in that. The Soka Gakkai says that you have to change and be a part of changing the tendencies that inhere in people's heart and minds. You know, Tina continuously references the subconscious mind. That's a very important kind of doctrine in Nichiren Buddhism. This idea that there are kind of 9 layers to the mind, and that the 8th layer is the site of subconscious suffering and whatnot, and collective suffering, and that you can change that. So I think what Buddhism offers, or can offer, is the understanding that it doesn't have to be this way. And in fact, it is whatever way that is, and that it is incumbent upon us as community, right? As in community, to change the way it is, because how it is not how it has to be. I think that is something that most Buddhist traditions would agree with, right, and aim for. So I hope that goes, there's much more to be said about that, but I think that that's the root of transformation for most Buddhist traditions. And it is on this basis that figures like Thich Nhat Hanh inaugurated and deepened this socially engaged Buddhist movement, right? The idea that change is not only possible, but inevitable. And I think that Buddhism says, last thing I'm about to preach it, no, but the last thing I'm going to say is that I think Buddhist traditions have something to say. Of course, any religious tradition, including Buddhism, can become a tool of those in power. So, I mean, that's important to say. But I think that what Buddhist traditions can offer, and what Buddhist traditions warn those in power, is that your time will always come, right? Every dog has its day, so to speak. And Buddhist traditions say that for those in power, you know that your power is unstable and transformation is inevitable.
Thank you. Chaplain Joseph.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much for an enlightening dialogue between you and Dr. Kim. I was just wondering, when Tina Turner sang "What's Love Got to Do with It?" Was that an expression of her life suffering? And and now that she has come, and yeah, was that an expression of her suffering? And what I was going to say, now that she is in her 80s, and she has outlived all of her, well, most of her family and so on, and even friends, her Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist style of life it seemed to have enabled her to manage through all that suffering and stress. Do you think now that she is in her 80s and going to her 90s and all of that, do you think she's going to, would you say she would fall back on her basic Baptist belief?
Thank you for those great questions. I can say, what's love got to do with it? Tina didn't write it and she didn't like it and didn't want to sing it. And it, but what happened is they entered a crunch, right? Many record labels, after she left Ike, Tina was basically an unwanted commodity. And she performed on the hotel circuit and cabaret circuits, but she wanted to crack the arenas and stadiums, and she needed a record deal to do that. And most record companies felt, one record executive, who shall remain nameless, at the old Capitol Records, he called Tina a washed up N-word douchebag, that that they were not interested in her. And so then, though, her song, her new wave soul cover of Al Green's Let's Stay Together became a huge hit in England. And first record labels in America said, no, we're not releasing that. She's wailing and we don't like it. And then a black DJ, disc jockey in New York, imported the single, and it became a #5 hit. And so then her record company turned around, EMI, and said, we need an album and we need it now. So she had 2 weeks to put the Private Dancer album together. And when What's Love Got to Do with It, the song was brought to them, Tina said, no, I'm not singing it. I don't like it. It's, and she said, I believe love has everything to do with it. This is a pop song. I don't sing pop, and the message is stupid. And her manager said, well, sis, if I were you, I'd record this song. And of course, it became her biggest hit in America. So I think What's Love Got to Do with It was the opposite of her kind of expression, but it did symbolize her, the song kind of became this kind of like Black feminist anthem because it had this attitude, and she had the punk rock hair and the jacket. And so it symbolized for a lot of people the awakening of, this kind of feminine power, and Tina wasn't like, if you think about the girl groups of the Supremes and the kind of soft singing, and the Supremes are super cool. I'm not putting down Queen Diana Ross, but when you think about Tina Turner, it was sweat and hair swinging and the high heels and stomping on stage. And so I think for her audiences, the song came to represent not so much the message of like what's love, but the kind of attitude became big. And now in her 80s, Tina is not falling back on her kind of Buddhist background. Her Baptist background. She's, leaned even more heavily into her Buddhist practice. She's been practicing Buddhism now for 50 something years, and it's this kind of deep part of her life. And in her home in Switzerland, she has 2 shrine rooms that are huge and super cool. And she spends a lot of time in those rooms. And now, as you said, she has a kind of ancestral shrine that has her mother and her sister and her sons there, and, people that she, like you said, she's outlived much of her family, even Ike Turner, who she did not consider a part of her family, but, she outlived him too. So she's kind of the last one standing, and her Buddhist practice has become integral to her sustenance, if you will. Thank you for that.
Thank you. This is so great.
Edward,
my friend.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Tina has always said she was part Native American.
Yes.
Okay. But she was on the Henry Louis Gates show.
Yeah.
They did a DNA and said that she was wrong. She was only 1% Native American.
Yeah.
33%, I think,
European.
European.
Mhm.
But I believe she is Native American. I wondered, has she changed her thoughts about that, or does she still believe she's Native American?
She still believes she's Native. I write about this in chapter 1 of my book. For Tina, I think it's important to look at what that belief does for Tina and her family. Tina had her 2 grandmothers. Her paternal grandmother was a very strict Baptist woman. And from that grandmother, her name is Roxana Bullock, you know, she said that grandmother was like always on her knees praying and just really strong Baptist woman. And so Tina got that spiritual discipline, that, you know, that intense religious practice discipline from her paternal grandmother. Her maternal grandmother, the one that they always believed was Native, represents for them a kind of an interaction between the person and the natural world, and this deep natural spirituality, right, based on nature. And Tina and her family associates those kind of ideas with that grandmother that they believe was Native. So I think the idea of being Native American for Tina and her family is less about the historical truth and more about this belief that ties them to the land. And if you go to West Tennessee, where Tina's from, especially the land she was born on, which was the Poindexter Farm, which was a cotton farm, it's so deeply spiritual. I mean, it's beautiful, and these sweeping expanses of land and sky, and, you know, rolling green and hazelnut trees and cotton fields as far as the eye can see. So all of that, Tina feels a part of that, and her family feels deeply a part of that. And I think that's what being Native does for them. Many African Americans, this is just a historical fact, many African Americans believe themselves to be part Native American. And for many African Americans, that's not true. I mean, historically, it doesn't line up.
Well, I think, thank you. I think that what has happened is that there were a lot of Africans who lived in America with the natives. And they did not distinguish between Native American and African. They call themselves the people. In fact, that was the first word that most of the tribes called themselves, was the people. And that is what, you know, that's why it was easy for them to say colored people, to embrace that. And I think that, I think she is, I can almost tell by her song Nutbush. If you just listen to the drumming on it, the beat of it is Native American. And that's why she's so grounded with her dancing. Like, I think that that's why she can outdance almost anyone except Michael Jackson, maybe. Anyway, that's enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. I think, what do you think, Louise? Do we have
Yeah, well, maybe we should stop. That's good. Yes. Okay, Kim.
Ooh. Well, do you have, Louise, go ahead. I see you have your hand up. What's your question, Louise?
Well, I had a quick question. Maybe there's a quick answer, I hope. I was curious why you got interested in Tina Turner.
I used to think, to answer this quickly, I used to think that it was because of seeing her on CBS in the year 2000, and I wrote that in the book even. And then my mother and members of my family reminded me that, no, it, you know, started much earlier. My mom said that even when I was a very small child, she said some of the first things I talked about as a child was Tina Turner. And, you know, my mom used my mom's a very lively person, and, you know, used to wear these kind of heels and the stockings and the mini skirts and all that. And my mom said, I used to say to her, while she would get dressed to go out, I used to say, Ma, Tina Turner, Tina Turner. And she said I was a very small child, like 4 or 5 years old. So I don't know. I don't really know where it started. But I've been learning from Tina for much of my life.
Wow, that is fantastic. So thank you so much. Now, Ralph, wow. So we've been here. Mama iJoy has been writing notes down and taking. So we're going to offer this song. You know, we always have a song after community sharing. So everybody take a stretch. Yes. And this song is, hold on a second here. Woo. So this song is one that you said you really liked. You like the song Blessed Assurance?
Oh, yes, this is my favorite, one of my favorites.
Okay, all right. So we're going to do Blessed Assurance. And I know that, you know, I sure imagine that Tina would have sung this song in her church growing up. And so we're offering this since it's a favorite song of yours. All right. Hold on a second here. Just tell her we're still in church. All right. But for those who say, this is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. So this is for you, definitely as a thank you, Ralph. This is amazing. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of his Spirit, washed in his blood. This is my story. This is my song. This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior all the day long. To the third verse, Mom. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I and my Savior am happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with his goodness, filled with his goodness, and lost in his love. This is my story. This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story. This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior all the day long.
Thank you. Thank you.